Good morning. I am filming this on January 1st, 2021, and for the first time in my life, I feel like this will not be a year where I'll have to struggle to remember what to write off the top of my page because I think collectively, maybe not the whole world, but definitely America has been preemptively waiting for this, trying to will it into existence. Yes, time is arbitrary, and the pandemic and racism and the destruction of our environment and corrupt governments don't just disappear in a new year. But all that being said, I do appreciate the symbolism of new chapters, new beginnings, and of learning from our past, but also leaving it behind us. So, in the spirit of that, I wanted to talk about my reading goals and channel goals for the upcoming year. Now, most of the videos that I do are things that either pop in my head or I've seen other people do. And this one was something that I had in my head for a while on a personal level, not something I was planning on sharing until I saw that it seemed to be an interesting topic that other people wanted to watch. I am a textbook type a chronic overplanner, a Carlton from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air 5-year plan on a huge sheet of paper kind of person. So I've been thinking about these goals for the last few weeks anyway, but I thought I'd want to share them because one, sharing ideas also helps me process them and crystallize them and edit them. And that way, if you wish, you can try to hold me accountable, which I would appreciate. So to start with channel goals, so far this year, I've uploaded a video on average about once a week. I think the longest I've gone without posting was maybe 2.5 weeks, but also there were weeks where I had a lot of time, I felt really inspired, and so I posted multiple times, which I think kind of averages out to once a week. I would really like to try to keep that routine in 2021. That level of consistency I find has allowed me to experience a certain amount of growth in my editing skills, growth in my comfortability on camera, growth in my subscribers, and also it keeps me engaged in a way that feels, I don't know. I have an issue when it comes to things that I enjoy doing, like booktube, and that if there are other things that I need to do, whether it's adult life things like making doctor's appointments or doing laundry, or if it's work for school or, work I'm doing for pay, I will often feel like I don't deserve to indulge in my hobbies until I finish everything else on my to-do list. But the thing about being an adult and about being alive is that the to-do list never ends. So telling myself that I'm going to post at least once a week, it doesn't feel restricting. It feels like I'm giving myself permission to actually do something that I really enjoy because I committed. I said I was going to do it once a week. And I find that schedule also gives me a lot of flexibility. Sometimes I will film, edit, and upload in the same day. Sometimes I'll feel really inspired and have, a whole day free. So I'll film multiple videos at once and release them over time. But that kind of one 30-minute or less video a week schedule really fits me. It doesn't feel constricting. It doesn't feel like an obligation. And I would like to try to see if I can keep it up because I'm really proud of the progress I've made over the last 6 months. And talking about progress and also going back to editing, I want to learn how to be more creative with the edits that I do on this channel. Everything I do is completely self-taught. I've learned from YouTube tutorials and watching other videos, wondering how they did that and trying to Google it. And while I'm by no means a master at editing video, in the past 6 months, I've become very proficient at what I would consider the basics. I finally know how to flip footage so you can actually read the titles on books. I know how to put book covers up on screen. I know how to edit out mumbles and edit out, parts where the lighting gets all weird or where I'm rambling. I know how to add text to the screen. I know how to add title cards and end cards. Those things are important and will always be a part of what I do here because, again, I consider them the basics. But I want to also learn how to add sound effects. I want to learn how to add music in the background. I want to actually film in more creative ways, getting different shots, filming in different environments other than, sitting in my office chair with a laptop propped up on a shoebox. Like, I work with what I got, but I really want to push myself. And since I know being more creative is really vague, how I'm going to phrase this is that I want to learn at least one new editing skill a month in 2021. And that doesn't mean I'm going to be incorporating all of them in my videos. I feel like in the videos that I watch and the videos that I make, I do prefer being more simple and straightforward and just sharing the information as best I can. But I think I can jazz them up a little bit and I would like to try. So learn one new editing skill a month. Whether or not I incorporate them we shall see what the video entails, but that is my second channel goal. And my third channel goal is that I want to be more intentional about creating content that feels original. Now, Original and authentic are two words that get thrown around a lot on the internet. So to be specific, every video that I do, I have enjoyed. And of course, I've added my own spin to it. It's the books that I've read, it's my thoughts and opinions, it's my personal stories, it's my reviews. So all of that I do consider to be original. However, when I look at people like Jess, who has her book community series, when I look at Ariel and she has her video reacting to the Goodreads color, when I look at Murphy and she has her Dear Author series, or look at Daniel Green and he has his fantasy news, I like that all of these creators have certain series or certain types of content that is really unique to them. Of course, anybody can talk about the Goodreads color. Of course, anybody can have a dialogue with the people that comment on their channel about things they like and dislike about books. But from what I can tell, all of these ideas were things that were created by those individual creators. And those are things that they're known for. And I also like that those are things that are consistent. I consistently post book reviews. I consistently post wrap-ups. Those things happen on my channel pretty frequently, and I like them. But I also like the idea of having some sort of, regular series, regular feature. And regular could mean, once a month. Regular could mean once every quarter. I'm not really sure what the cadence of that would be, but I really want to challenge myself to come up with something that either only I can bring or that I am uniquely suited to bring, whether that's involving religion, whether that's involving theater or film, archaeology maybe, I don't know. But I want to try to find a way to kind of carve out a little niche of something that you're only going to get when you come to my channel. So moving away from channel goals, we have our reading goals. Something you should know about me is that I never give myself numeric reading goals. I think the last one I gave was 12. So I'm going to read at least 12 books a year. And I have for the past few years that I've gotten back into reading. But something that I do want to be intentional about in my reading this year is, one, I want to finish a series. As y'all know, I don't really read series. The only series that I have, or I guess the only two books that are part of a series I've read recently are Parable of the Sower, but unfortunately there's only one book left, Parable of the Talents, because of Octavia Butler's untimely death, and Axiom's End. I know that there are going to be two more books released in that series at least, and Linsday, Ellis, the author, wants to get to 5, but again, none of them are released yet, or there won't be any more of the Parable series. So whether it's, me going back and finally finishing the Abarat series, whether it's me trying the Broken Earth Trilogy by Jemisin, which has been recommended multiple times, I want to really just finish a series this year and see if it's something that I might want to do in the future, because whether it's because certain books tend to interest me or certain genres, like I feel like fantasy and sci-fi are more likely to be series, I tend to avoid them. I tend not to pick them up, and I really want to challenge myself. My next reading goal is that, with 2 exceptions, and I'm highlighting that up front, with 2 exceptions, I am not going to buy any books in 2021. So I currently have, I believe, 16 or 17 books that on my shelf that I have not read yet that I actively want to read. I have already done an unhaul of a bunch of my books. I'll put that video in the atmosphere if you want to watch it. So with the exception of the books that are my partners that aren't mine, I have nothing on my shelves that I am not interested in. And since my average reading has been between, I want to say like 20 and 40 books a year the past couple years, there's no reason. I say no reason as I sit on the eve of a new year not knowing what's going to come, but barring ridiculous circumstances, there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to finish the 17 books that I have on that list. And my 2 exceptions, though, for buying books is I know for a fact that I will absolutely want to own Parable of the Talents. I love Parable of the Sower so much. I've heard Parable of the Talents is even better, even more intense, and I really want to have my little Octavia Butler section fill up a little more right next to my little Toni Morrison section. So I will be buying that book. And the other exception is children's books. I don't really talk about them as much on my channel as I want to. I really want to start bringing some of them back on screen in the new year. But since I can finish them all within 15 minutes or less, and because I do have different feelings when it comes to what I consider my collection of children's books and what I consider to be my kind of rotating library of all these other books, I feel differently about purchasing those because I know they're not going to sit on my shelves unread. So no book buying in 2021, with the exception of those 2 books. And I guess it's kind of 2 goals. And I want to get through the 16 or 17 books that are kind of on my internal TBR. And the last reading goal that I have for 2020 is I want to be intentional about trying different genres. I would never have thought that I would end 2020 as a sci-fi fan. Now, I have only read a couple authors in the sci-fi genre, but from just Octavia Butler's works alone, I am really, really interested in exploring more of this. And I can't tell you the last time I read a romance book. Right now, like as we speak, I am reading the first historical fiction, and like real historical fiction that is set in the 1800s book that I've read in years, and I'm loving it. And I don't want to say that it's the genre that makes the book, because I believe that a great writer can pretty much write any book and I'll be interested, even if it seems to be a genre I say I'm not interested in. But when you kind of let your instincts guide you like I do, when you kind of go by your mood, it's more likely that you are going to go to things that you have already experienced before. I cannot tell you the last time I read, like I said, a fantasy or a romance, or I can't tell you the last time I actually read a book with multiple authors. I mean, that's something I'm seeing a lot, but in general, I tend to read solitary authors. And so one goal I have for myself is that I want to try to read 5 books outside of my genre. Again, genre is a very nebulous term. For example, I just said that I haven't read a fantasy book in years. However, when I was researching Kindred by Octavia Butler, which I bought in the science fiction section and heavily features time travel, I found by reading the author interview in the back that she doesn't consider it science fiction. She considers it grim fantasy or dark fantasy, because while there is time travel and there's questions about, lineage and multiple time loops, and if you do this in one time will affect the other time, in her words, there's no science in the book. She doesn't talk about science at all, which makes it fantasy. And that's not that's not what I think of when I think of fantasy. And I would never have known that she considered it fantasy, especially considering where, Barnes and Noble's shelved it, if I hadn't read that. So again, this one might have a little leeway here on what counts as really outside my genre, but I'm trying to hold myself to an honorable standard. And I know reading a book like Kindred, even though it is fantasy, is very much up my alley. So when I say fantasy, maybe it's fantasy adventure, maybe it's, fantasy with sirens and mermaids and mythological creatures. Maybe it's fantasy based on Greek fantasy or Yoruba fantasy. Like, I know where my blind spots are in that regard, and so I'm going to try to hold myself accountable to that. So those are my goals for my channel and for my reading in 2021. I am hopeful about many things in this upcoming year. And I am hopeful about this, because this has been a really, really wonderful thing to come out of 2020. I started this channel in June of 2020 when I was going through a lot of things and really just wanted to have a moment, have a haven, have dedicated time to talk about reading, talk about books, talk about things I love. And I wanted to build a community outside of the walls of my apartment. I've been super grateful to be living with a partner that I get along with, so I had that emotional connection. My friends and I have been doing Zoom and house party, been calling my parents, seeing my grandmother when I can. When the pandemic got really bad, we brought her to live with my dad, so we could take care of her, and that was great to spend that time. But community is something that I feel that I prioritize even more now after 2020. And I think that I have different definitions of what a community means beyond what I had been used to before. So if you are part of this community, thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for being in my pod. Thank you for what you contributed and what you continue to contribute. Because while this was mainly about my goals for next year, I could do a whole other video on the ways that my reading has improved and changed, and my relationship to the bookish community and online communities as a whole has evolved for the better since interacting with you and meeting you and starting this channel. So onwards and upwards into 2021. I hope it is everything that you want it to be. And as always, I hope you have a great day. Bye.